I want to dive a little deeper here into what a fake relationship is and how you can identify this when we talk about the social, the interrelationship aspects, only to give you guys a little bit of a guideline for this. Is this actually true love, what we are experiencing with someone, or is this actually true love that we are wanting? So whether or not you are in a relationship, you have to look at your ideals of love as well and the purpose of love for you, okay? Because a lot of times, we have this like skewed view of how this should be. This makes us completely incapable of actually feeling if a connection that we have with another person is true or not, or what the purpose of that is. So I'm just throwing a few keywords at you here. So many of us empaths have this like skewed idea that love has to be sacrificial in some way, and that there is honor in that. There is no honor, guys, in dishonoring or violating your own integrity or your own true self. On no level, not even on the highest level of selflessness and devotion. Selflessness does not mean to sacrifice yourself. The higher harmonics of self, of your divine self, does not include sacrifice, guys. It's a misunderstanding of love, a misunderstanding of spirituality. And where does this play out in our relationships? Here, I'm going to give you an overview here, okay? How can you tell? This is very, very practical. How can you tell if you are in a true self relationship, okay? If what you're striving for is a true self relationship. But let's stay with, the past relationships. It's maybe a little easier for you to find this in there. You know that you are in a toxic relationship when you cannot see that you are in a fake relationship over a prolonged amount of time. So there's degrees of that. So just, finding out that there maybe isn't much substance or much foundation to your relationship doesn't necessarily mean that you're in a toxic relationship. But typically it's progressive. So the less we are able to actually identify if we are in a fake relationship or not, the less we are actually true to our own boundaries and our own integrity, and the more we tend to agree to toxicity in our relationships. And most of you already know this, there's a connection with our inner child and with the parenting that we've experienced. I don't want to go into this here right now. I just want to give you the markers. If there, besides those signs, that you may not be in a true self relationship, you will also experience something that happens usually very early in your life, not so much if you're younger, but if you're a little older, and that is the confusion between sex and love. So many of us have these beliefs that when we have sex with someone, we need to be in love with them. And for many of us women, growing up in a society where this was very skewed, through religion and also societal portrayal of female sexuality, we are deeply, deeply confused between these things, and we are often using our sexuality in order to feel validated and feel loved. And so many of you have had relationships in the past where, you felt kind of rushed into having sex, and then you had to make yourself feel in love with this person. This is a disclaimer here, okay? This is a specific problem. A male can experience this too, but I've seen this more in female empaths, okay? Because this pressure to have sex at a young age often, comes from the outside, and for women this usually takes a little longer to develop. So, not to ride this, but there are gender specifics in the way we subjectively experience connectedness. And for a woman, it is very typical to wanting to experience connectedness first and then to engage in a physical connection. And for a man, it's very typical, and there's no judgment with this, to go into physical connection, physical intimacy first, and then as a result of that to feel deeper connectedness. So this is part of our human duality, and I don't want you to judge yourself or the other. If this is something that you've observed as a pattern of confusion in yourself in the past. But what are the signs? So, a really good sign for a good foundation with somebody is when you can have deep conversations, when you can feel free and safe to speak from your heart, when you feel, that there is a genuine interest and care about what you have to say or what you want to share. And when this is encouraged in the relationship, even if it gets a little tricky sometimes, all right? So if you feel that, the other is kind of like either just talking about themselves or, sort of rushing over, sort of your true feelings, then this could be an indication that you may not feel safe enough on the long run, to really share. So you got to have that feeling of safety, that it's safe to share. Safety has a lot to do with a strong foundation. And, one of the things that make us feel safe, which would be sign number 2, that you may not be in a true self relationship, is that we feel that it's okay to be who we are, whether we have makeup on or not, whether, we are dressed up or not, whether we are in a good place or in a bad place, okay, that it's okay to be me, okay, and this needs to be reflected in your partner, who needs to give you that space, and also in you, of course, being willing to give the other that space. Okay, so, when you feel rushed into things, when you feel rushed into having to perform in a certain way, or rushed into having sex, maybe, or rushed into, going into a commitment with somebody before you feel safe, that's a big red flag, guys, okay? It can feel sort of uplifting for our ego to feel that, oh, this person must really love me if they want to, if they're so serious about this. But it may, overstep your boundaries here. This may not be the right timing yet. You may feel rushed, and even if you don't want to admit it, you may actually become insecure, about whether or not this is the right move. So never hesitate to ask for the space to feel things out, and also to stay within your timing of things. When somebody truly loves you, it is important to the other person that you feel safe, that you feel this is the right time, okay? Number 3 is, when there are things, and this counts especially when you look back at your relationships and you want to evaluate if they were actually true self-relationships. When you feel like there was a lot of external stuff, there was a lot of cool outer stuff. Maybe we made a lot of cool trips together, or we accumulated a great house. Maybe we even accumulated kids, sort of these outside white picket fence kind of things. But if you look past all this, and maybe you are divorced, or you are not in this relationship anymore, and you look back and what was beyond that? Was there anything about that deeply moved me? And, be careful here to mistake this with some of your internal processing of a relationship where you see that you've learned a lot, or where you could resolve karmic aspects with this relationships, and that this means a lot to you, okay? So the meaning of a relationship. When the meaning of a relationship is in sort of what you've learned about yourself through going through, like, say, the drama or the hardship of that relationship, it may not even have anything to do with the other person. And the same vice versa, look at how the other person, regards you, if this is even about you. One of the things that I've noticed with my past relationship partners is that, if we break up, like, say, we've had a 3-4 year relationship and we break up, and they immediately replace me. What does that tell me? They immediately have a new partner, like right off the bat. Does that mean like that they just sort of, that it's exchangeable? So what is individual? What is true about that relationship? These things survive, guys, even if you break up or get divorced. The true meaning of a relationship and how this relates to the other person, that prevails. You never lose that, okay? And this can tell you if this actually was a true self-relationship. Number 4 is, when you constantly feel confused, whether you are loved or whether you love the other. When you're not 100% sure, when you constantly question either yourself or the other. And oftentimes, it depends on the age group that you're in. It has to do with commitment. So when it comes to the outer props of commitment, like, say, putting the ring on someone, you know, being asked to get married and so forth, are seen in some societies, are seen as sort of the ultimate commitment. This isn't necessarily true in all societies. So, you know, it's not just about commitment. It's about the question whether or not this is truly about wanting to be with you and for yourself as well. Is this truly about wanting to be with this person? Can I imagine to be with this person in relationship? And oftentimes this reflects, this points back at yourself. You know, is the person that I am showing up as, that I am representing in this relationship, is this authentic enough for me to really wanting to be with myself? This is the mirror of our true self relationships. You know, we have to be willing to be wanting to be with ourselves, to feel that it is true to us. And if it's either us or the other who do not show up as true, then we are constantly confused. We may not be aware of this, but we will constantly sort of either, you know, try to change the other or try to make him different, or we will feel like the other is constantly criticizing us and trying to make us become somebody different. That confusion is a sign for a, you know, relationship that is not based on truth, that is perhaps even toxic, because this can go very, very far. Okay. Number 5 is when any problem that arises creates a huge drama. There is no such thing as a perfect relationship, and even perfect relationships, I mean, you know, this is contradictory, right? But they have problems. There are things that need to be resolved from time to time. Changes happen, you know, we have to adapt to things, we have to work with things. And, you know, as energy worker, I do a lot of couple coaching as well. And I always look at the people's, the couple's willingness to resolve things, okay? If there is a problem and one or both, but for the most part it's usually one, is not really willing to talk about problems, not really willing to go into the seriousness of things, or even if they, you know, don't perceive it as a problem, but if you say, oh, you know what, this is my concern, or this is, I have a problem with this, and they're kind of brushing it off and saying, well, you're just making this all up, you know, or just in your mind, or, you know, that's your problem. Okay, this isn't based on truth, because when somebody has a concern or a problem with something, even if you disagree with how they're seeing it, but then the only way to work through this is to actually exchange that, to speak from the heart and to listen and to, you know, to care about what the concerns of the others are, and to feel that the other cares about your concerns, so that you actually can work through something. So, you know, your prospect or your chances of actually having a happy and lasting relationship comes through this willingness to work through problems. And if the other has a behavioral pattern such as shutting down the moment you want to talk about problems, or turning into a rage beast, or turning this into an accusation, or seeing everything as an accusation, or, you know, getting all upset about you pointing out, you know, what you perceive as real, then you need to look twice. This is not a good foundation. Okay. Number 6 is something where you have to really look closely, because it also plays into your own manipulations, and that is something like a power struggle, you know, something like, I'm more right than you, I'm more spiritual than you, I'm more true than you, I'm like whatever, you know, this comparison and insecurity of wanting to be somebody you're not, you know, or trying to be perfect, or comparing yourself with the other. Okay, this is a big red flag in relationships, because it sets you up for power struggles, for manipulation. And the reason why I brought up the manipulation is that as empaths and energy readers, you know, we have that ability to read what the other person wants, or what they think, or what they desire from us. And this gets us into trouble over and over again without noticing. We may think that we are, you know, trying to help them or trying to heal them or whatever. All these rescuer and fixer stuff, you know, is a form of manipulation. It's a coverted form of trying to control the other, and vice versa. So codependency in a relationship is a huge red flag, because now you have two people, and if it's two empaths, you know, trying to heal another instead of themselves, you know, going into a complete illusion of what a relationship is about. A relationship is about sharing this experience of, healing and growing with another, not, you know, being healed through the other, or becoming more whole through the other, or being told what to do, or, you know, any of these things. It also doesn't have anything to do with being more right than the other, you know. So in discussions, if you feel that the other person goes off on, you know, you're wrong, and the way you're seeing this, be it spiritual views or political opinions or whatever, and storms off, and, you know, doesn't want to talk to you anymore, you know, gives you the silent treatment or withdraws, you know, this is a very, very big red flag, because you really can't discuss or resolve or work through anything in this way. And if it's constantly about, well, you're doing this too, or, you know, you do this even more often than me, or, you know, it's a matter of accusations or allegations or generalizations, you know, you're already off in illusion, because there is no solution there, at least not a higher vibratory solution, the one that you would like to find with your partner. So you got to be really careful, you know, with these kind of things. Number 7 has to do with projection, and also with this manipulation that we do without even noticing. Sometimes, as energetically sensitive people, we can also project our idea of our relationship, you know, this sort of idealized version, either of the other person or of the relationship. This is where fantasy bonds come in, where we love the idea of the other person, or being with the other person, or the relationship, more than actually the person. And this is where this emptiness comes from, you know, that we sometimes feel after we ended a relationship, because, you know, besides the props, the external stuff, there was nothing really there. So in order to prevent that from happening, you know, you really got to double check on your own projections. What are you projecting? Not just what are you emotionally or psychologically projecting here, as in like sort of, you know, not admitting to your own problems and trying to make the other responsible for it, or unconsciously projecting this on the other, but also your projections, your energetic projections, you know, how much you actually energetically intrude and violate the others' safe for a space for being themselves, allowing themselves to be, and trying to override this with this fantasy, you know, of how this should be, and how we are made for another, and how this is a twin soul relationship, and how this is, you know, more than everybody else's relationship, and how this is all special. Okay, big red flag, guys. Very common in spiritual circles. So this whole twin soul, twin flame thing is very, very deceptive, and you know, really creates more havoc, you know, more harm than good for people, because it distracts them from, you know, the practical aspects of actually being true selves, right? By making it all special, making it all super spiritual. All right. Number 8 is when you feel that things are not matching up. So let's say you feel an attraction to a person, and this is often linked to the energetic projection, also the sexual projection that comes with that ability to project your energy. That you feel this like really strong attraction to somebody, but it doesn't match up with how they show up, you know, how they treat you, and vice versa, you know. It's not enough, guys, to just have this like really strong sort of fleshly physical intimacy, and even sometimes in the etheric, okay? It's a whole chapter in itself, but, you know, to live something there that feels truly, truly special in regards to the physical intimacy or this connectedness that you feel there, that is all fake, really, because it's projected, okay? If you want to know if your relationship really, you know, is really a vibrational match, is really based on this true resonance, okay, then you need to discipline yourself and stop projecting. Tough one. It's a good therapy for every couple, especially empath couple, to refrain from projecting and stop texting and stop emailing and stop calling all the time. Energetically, that's very, very impolite. It's very infringing. Okay? Those are all signs that you are feeling that your relationship doesn't have enough substance, so that you have to fill this up with your own projections. Okay, red flag, guys. And then number 9, you know, is something that in the practical you can see this, you know, especially in spiritual circles a lot, when it feels like people aren't really interested in your friends, you know, in your ancestors, in in your family, in where you're from. You know, where they just want to take you as you are, and they say, oh, I love you the way you are, I don't care about your past. No, guys, that's a red flag, okay? I mean, this is all about, you know, understanding you. And if you really want to have a relationship from the heart, you know, you want to feel the other person also, you know, sort of where they're from. Not just what their house looks like or their car looks like, but also, you know, what their relationship with their friends and their parents look like. You know, our our relationship with our true self reflects in our outer relationships, and this is a way to better feel the other person and also understand, you know, maybe some of their problems. You know, if you feel like your partner has no interest in seeing your, you know, connecting with your friends or with your world, okay, this is an indication that they just want you to be part of their world. Okay, and this can go as far as like forbidding you to be with certain people, or forbidding you to read books, or to listen to certain spiritual teachers, or be part of certain spiritual groups or teachings. Okay, this can go very, very far. It's a huge, huge, big flag. Sign number 10, that your relationship may not be based on the principles of a true self relationship. Authenticity and true self is if there are a lot of unseen, unspoken, invisible ties, energetic ties, pink elephants, feeling like you're walking on eggshells, feeling like you have to constantly sort of feel out, you know, how your partner feels, and be careful about what you say or what you do and what you don't do. You know, where there's a constant sort of wariness and constantly sort of mentally anticipating what is going to happen next, where you constantly insecure that you know, that if you show up in the way that you feel is true to you, would make this person act in a certain way. This leads into this whole section of emotional abuse and the red flags. You know, so when there's when there are these subjects that you definitely can't talk about, or when you feel like that your boundaries are constantly being tested, you know, when your no's are not being taken for a no, when people keep trying, when they do this constant sort of flipping between abusing you on the one hand, or, you know, treating you really badly and then rescuing you on the other hand. You know, when there's silent treatment, you know, withholding or withdrawing, you know, this constantly sort of feeling rejected or feeling punished for something. You know, when there's passive aggressiveness, when you feel like your feelings are, or your opinions are being disregarded or dismissed or degraded or straight out ignored, you know, where, you know, you don't feel that what you have to say or what you bring in is validated at all. I mean, this can go as far as like completely speaking over you and ignoring you, you know, when you want to say something. You often also see this in the sense that people constantly distract. Even humor can be one of those tactics to redirect your energy towards them. And last but not least, obviously, when, you know, your partner makes everything about him or her, you know. So these 10 signs that show you that your relationship may be more of a fantasy bond or even a toxic relationship. So that's a gradient, you know, there's different gradients. They don't mean, you know, it doesn't mean that if you can identify, you know, a few of these things in your relationship, that this is a toxic relationship, okay? But when you can identify and relate to these 10 signs, and you feel that a lot of these things are actually happening in your relationship, it is a sign that what you believe to be true love or a true self relationship may more be a relationship that's based on solar plexus, on control, you know, on constantly sort of pushing into the other, you know, and trying to gain some kind of energetic advantage. Okay, so this is often something that goes both ways. So a lot of that has to do with us also being willing to acknowledge that, that some of these things we are doing too. Withholding, for instance, or silent treatment, or going into the superior mode, or oh, he just doesn't understand me, or he just, can't see it the way I'm seeing this because I'm energetically sensitive and he's not, or, because he doesn't really want to go on this journey or whatever. When you find yourself in this place where you make excuses, or where you have to justify, or where you have to somehow, compensate for something that deep down, on your true self level, you feel is not right, that's when you become incongruent. That's when you basically invite all these imbalances, all this exhaustion, all this constantly sort of feeling you're walking on eggshells, and what comes around the corner, this anxiousness, and also the frustration and the depression that can come with this. That means you are refusing to be real. You're refusing, or you're rejecting or resisting your true self perception. Okay? So remember that anything you can heal within yourself, anytime you can hold the space for yourself, it allows you to hold the space for others. But this needs to be mutual. So if a relationship is not based on mutual exchange of energy, then it typically means that one of the two are either in an illusion or consciously or unconsciously exploiting the energy of the other. Okay? To make everything sacred.